Hey everybody, Mark here at Gilbo Realty. I'm going to discuss today really quick why there's no inventory argument is bogus. And I'm going to show you why and where people make their mistake. And it's not because they mean to and it's done on purpose. It's just because it gets reiterated over and over again in the media and it becomes a lie, becomes a truth. And what happens is everybody picks up on it and continues to make videos on it, say, "Oh my God, inventory's so low. There's nobody. You can't find anything." But that's not the truth. And I want to point you right here to this chart. Now, I was in real estate before 2010. I was also in mortgages before 2010. So I know what was going on during that time span. Okay. So let me show you real quick. I got here new listings. Okay. And this goes all the way back to 2010 January. I wish it went to '08 because I think it would prove my point even more. But if you look here in January 2010, we're still going through a lot of foreclosure things, a lot of foreclosure processes. People are still selling. We had about, in my area, about 6,400 listings. And that's a pretty wide swath of area. Okay, it covers more than one city. Okay. So if you look here, 6,400, and then we went through a little lull, got really bad in April 2011. A lot of other banks, I believe at the time, went belly up, so we had some issues going on, okay? And also what happened during this time, which nobody likes to talk about, is that banks weren't allowed to foreclose on a lot of these homes. In New York State, they put a moratorium on foreclosing. You couldn't even bring it to the courts. They stopped everything that was in the courts. They stopped it. So what you had, you had a 2 or 3 year lull of inventory that was sitting there occupied or sometimes even not occupied by the current owner, wasn't paying their mortgage, and the state, at least my state, and I know several others did too, stopped the foreclosure process for those banks, which typically took anywhere between 9 to 12 months, depending on the scenario. Now it turned into a 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 year cycle to get all this inventory that was backed up from 2008 to 2011 out into the marketplace. So if you look here, April 2011 was our lowest point of inventory on the market, new listings, okay? But if you look here after April 2011, everything started to ramp up. We had a huge projection. All the banks are foreclosing on these properties, are able to work them in. Financing has come back. You've got some builders that probably have some lines of credit open again. So all this is ramping up, all this inventory, and we peaked. Over 5 years later, we peaked in inventory from the crash, the economic crash of 2008. So we had a big lull, big ramp up of inventory that was just sitting there waiting to be foreclosed on. Then the next thing you know, the courts opened up again, financing came back around, the markets opened up, things started to steady. They printed a ton of money, right? We bailed a bunch of people out. And people had a better outlook on the economy at that point. And then you see this ramp up of inventory, new listings, ramp up, ramp up. We got all the way up to our high was almost 13,000. I remember this time. I could pull up in the MLS a million homes. They'd be all over the place. But a lot of them were foreclosures. A lot of them were short sales. Even to this day. So I was getting foreclosures from back in 2008, 9, and 10 in 2018. That's how long it took to foreclose on some of these properties. Okay. So what we really had was a huge ramp up of inventory. Everybody got used to it because it was a pretty long period of time. It was between, mid 2012 all the way to about right before COVID hit, 2020, 2021. So what we had this huge ramp up of inventory because of the crash. And then we had a gradual decline because, banks aren't going to throw 1,000 homes out there out there in the market. They don't have the staff to do it. B, it's a nightmare. C, a lot of these homes are still occupied. Some even squatted in. So you had a process you had to follow not only from the state, but also from the investors who bought the loan. And also from the bank because they were limited on staff. You know, our REO departments don't have 100 people working in them. Okay, and they gotta work with other companies a lot of the times that do a lot of this for them. So look at this chart. So when people say today, and this is August 7100, okay, in my area, okay, when people say there's no inventory, it's not true. What's really happening is inventory is coming back to normal. So in April 2010, look, we had 6,600 homes. We're down to about 7,184. Now people are like, oh my God, there's no inventory. I can't buy a house. That's not true. Inventory all over the place still. What we really just went through was the normalization of the crash of 2008. So when someone says inventory is low, we need more housing being built, I'm not saying that they're not being truthful in the sense of maybe some more housing builds. Maybe some markets are over purchased because you had a lot of people, you know, I also think during this time, because there were so many foreclosures on the market during this time, and because a lot of these homes after 5 or 6 years were somewhat dilapidated, they had no choice but to go to investors, typically, okay? Because the average home buyer is not going to want to get a rehab loan or have the cash in pocket to come buy a house, fix it, and live in it or flip it. So this was between 2011, April, to about 21. We kind of hit our peak and we became normalized in inventory. Okay. So people are going to say, well, why was 2020, 21, and half of 2022 so crazy? Well, because you had COVID. Because you took all this pent up demand that happened for what, March all the way through to maybe mid 21. We were locked down off and on over and over again. That's a lot of homes and a lot of people that want to buy a house that are sitting out there that can't. So now we have just from '08 to we had a crash going on, believe it or not, in the economy in late 2019 before COVID. And I think COVID truly hid the crash of 2019 that was going to happen. It just allowed us to print massive amounts of money. Okay. So look here, 7,100. This chart doesn't lie. I remember this moment. This back here was normal inventory levels. We went through the major foreclosure process, getting all the deeds, finding them, putting them on the market. They're slowly dwindling the inventory out as we go, slowly. And now we're getting back to where it's somewhat normal. Okay, so when someone says there's no inventory, that is not true. Majority of the markets are just normalizing. But the problem you have today also is that you have a lot of people in the market today that are buying for investment properties, fix and flips. They're Airbnb, a lot of this stuff, okay, which I think some of that's going to be turning around again. But, you know, there was a lot of things that happened between this time period and this peak. A lot of things hit the market that weren't normal before 2011. You didn't know Airbnb. There was none of that. There were investors, but there weren't a ton of investors like there are today. I mean, you got 20-year-olds, 25-year-olds buying investment properties, right? You have people, you know, you have these big hedge funds from Wall Street and others that are actually buying that have bought a ton of these properties over the last 10 years, right? And that before 2011 was out there, but it was nowhere near what it's been for the last 10, 12 years. So you have a lot of things happening between this time span. It moved very quick. If you don't have the knowledge before the 2010, 2011 low, then you really don't know why when I say inventory is not low, this chart should prove it to you. Okay? We're getting back to normal. That's what's happening. So anyways, Mark here at Gilboa Realty. This chart will just show you that we're coming back to normal, folks. Inventory is average. I can look in any market in my area and I can see a ton of houses for sale. And while I'm at it, let me pull that in here. Let me show you active listings. Watch. Here we go. Let's just go active only. I'm not even doing under contract. Okay? Let's pull up the area. There's a ton of homes. I mean, Utica's a small city. How many homes are you supposed to have for sale? Rome is a tiny city. Look at all the homes for sale. Okay? These are no mainland areas up here. These are out in the boondocks. There's a ton of homes for sale. A ton. All the way up to Watertown, New York. Another small city with a little military base. Ton of homes all over the place. Along the water. All different price ranges. Rochester, again, coming back to normal. There's a ton of homes for sale in and outside of Rochester. Okay? Let's look at Buffalo. And there's a ton of homes for sale throughout all these little communities. I mean, Albion's tiny. Look how tiny this thing is. Okay? You have a small little city. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You have 11 homes for sale. I guarantee you there's not 11 people, 12. And there's not 11 people moving there every year. Not even close. Okay? So that's kind of what you have. Look, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 homes in Medina. How many do they need? They don't have that many. Right? Inventory is coming back to normal, folks. Don't let anybody fool you. This may not be true for every single market on the planet in the United States, but it is true for the majority of the markets. Okay? Anyways, Mark here, Gilbo Realty. Don't forget to go to our website if you're looking to invest in upstate New York. Go to GilboRealty.com, GILBO Realty.com. And you can always give me a call, 315-804-4847. Have a good day.